Welcome to this episode of the Playful Lens podcast. And we are so fortunate to be joined on this episode with Michelle. Michelle, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks very much. I'm delighted to be on the podcast today. My name is Michelle. I've been teaching quite a number of years at this stage. In 2014 to 2016, I did my master's in UCD. I was teaching at Wicklow at the time. And when it came to my thesis time, then I focused on parental involvement in play-based learning. So when I came out of Mary, I was in infants, and then I was moved to the middle classes, and I think I returned to infants then after about 5 years. And I think the Ashter framework was just starting that time. So I did my summer course on it, and then when I went back to school, I implemented it, and I could see the benefits straight away, and I could see how the children responded to it and how there were so many benefits it had for them. So during that time, we had a WSE, and obviously I used play as a huge part of my day. But one of the things I took from my WSE is that I had planned every lesson to perfection. I spent hours preparing stuff, except for maths, because I had such a structure and a framework and lots of hands-on activities that I didn't want to change it because I had infants and they will tell you when it's different. So I kept going with my structured maths approach, which was all play-based. It was all ready, set, go, really. And I just went with it because I couldn't change it on the day. And when I got my feedback from the inspector, she actually said to me that my maths was my best lesson of the day. And I was like, I spent hours preparing everything else, but the play and the hands-on was the most beneficial lesson of the day, which I was like, okay, why did I have to plan anything different? I should have just done what I was doing all the time, do you know? So then I
Yeah,
began to really realize the benefits of it.
yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your thesis, Michelle? Because that was such an interesting topic.
Yeah. I had done a lot of research on play, but it was to try and link it and to make it more relevant to my primary teaching. And then I started researching parental involvement, and then I realised that there actually wasn't that much research at all on parental involvement specific to play-based learning. So that's where I found my niche, I suppose, because I wanted to find an area of teaching where my research can fit in and can lead research in other areas if necessary. So when I was speaking to my supervisor, she was like, okay, because play was too broad, you had to narrow the focus. So I was like, okay, what about parental involvement in play-based learning? And I'm so glad now that I wanted to go down the route of Ashter, and I'm so glad I didn't, because Ashter, like with the change in the curriculum, it's more play-based pedagogy, which is where my research fits in still after a few years. So that's why I went down the route of parental involvement in play-based learning. And it was really interesting. I did a focus group with parents. I interviewed teachers from different settings, and I interviewed 2 facilitators who were actually giving CPD on Ashter and play-based learning. And yeah, they were all face-to-face interviews. So getting to chat to lots of people, getting ideas from different schools, going in and out of different schools as part of my research, and then obviously sitting down with the parents from the school that I was in at the time and hearing what was working for them and how it could be improved, I suppose. And that's where my research came in.
That's really interesting,
Amazing.
Michelle.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, why did you decide to focus in on parental involvement as a topic?
Well, I suppose from teaching infants, you'd always realise the same few children might have been late in the mornings, and trying to change my schedule and my timetable to fit things in. Um, and I often wondered, was it late? Were they late because the parents said, oh, they just play for the first 20 minutes and there's no need for them to be in? So I rejigged my timetable and I put my play between the breaks, and then the kids were in. So I was like, okay, I don't know if they see the value.
That's really interesting. Actually, it's grand. They're only playing.
They're only
It's that
playing.
thought of only play. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really interesting when you put meaningful, in air quotes, meaningful subjects early in the morning, that the children were then on time for school, isn't it? It just shows where the value and the kind of the importance is placed, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's
And
what
from
led you then to look involvement.
Well, it was kind of like, do the parents appreciate play as much as we value it in education? Do parents actually value it as much? So when I changed the timetable, I noticed the children were in. So then I wanted to mix it up again. And then on a Thursday for maths, I'd send home a game for homework rather than a written activity in their busy maths book or whatever I was using. And I sent home maths games that the children were so familiar with, and that's all they had to do on a Thursday night was play the maths games for homework, because I wanted to show the parents there's just as much learning in this as there is in a
Yeah.
workbook page. but this is actually more engaging at
If
home
not
than
more.
trying to get them to do a workbook page, especially in infants. So that's, and then they're trying to get the parents on board that way. And then was like, how is this working? How can we improve on it and build this knowledge of the importance of play based learning with parents and to build our parental involvement that way?
And how did it go down with the parents when you were sending home games on a Thursday?
The first few weeks they were like, oh, okay. And then I had been working with the children in the class and I'd been taking little snippets and videos of them playing different games. And then I had a class blog at the time. And so I uploaded everything to that. So if they weren't sure how to play the game at home, if the instructions were missing or, the children were so enthusiastic they wanted to get started straight away, um, they could look at the blog with their child, watch the game, and then play it at home themselves. Then they began to see the value of it. But even one of my research, when I was looking back at it, it said the parents wanted to see the connection between the play and the learning and the actual learning outcomes, I suppose. They needed to see concrete examples of learning before they fully understood the value of the play based approach.
Yeah, it's that kind of tangible outcome, isn't it? That real work. And again, very air quote. But it's that kind of seeing that there is work being done, there is learning here. It's nearly there has to be something concrete and something tangible, isn't
Mm.
it? For people to see the value of play and playful learning.
And I do think as teachers, we can be guilty of that as well. Like we're looking towards the workbook, wanting the workbook done, whereas we don't want, some people may not see the value in them playing as much. Because there's so many workbooks to be done, we can be just overloaded.
Yeah, and you're so right. Like as teachers, we're nearly
Mm.
trained to focus on the product.
Yes,
What's
yeah,
the end result?
yeah.
What's the purpose of this? And play, well, child-led play, like is very often apparently it's purposeless. When you
Yes,
look
yeah,
at
yeah.
it, you can't see it, you benefit to it. And then of course it's so hard to value it. But play and learning are like go hand in hand for children. It's how they learn.
And it's
Yeah.
so interesting because if you send home a workbook that's finished or sheets that are finished, the learning is done. Even if the child can't explain the process, but yet if you don't have the worksheets, but the child can explain what they learned, they're still not the same value at times. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting to see that correlation between a tangible, concrete product and play led learning and the playful learning.
And it's so relevant to our new curriculum now where we're
Yeah.
focusing on process over product. But it's so hard because, parents in school, it was all about the product. So, of course, even for us as teachers in school, it was all about the product. So, it makes sense that it's challenging to change our mindsets to value the process.
Yeah.
And Michelle, when you began your research, did you find parents were a bit reluctant to become involved, or did they kind of go, "Yeah, I'll chat to you about that," or was it like, "Well, sure, what are you talking about?"
Yeah. Um, I suppose in the school that I was in at the time, we had parents in reading with children. We would have had parents involved in different ways. So we already had the active parental involvement side of things, but not necessarily in play. So, and then during the focus group, the questions were kind of led on, okay, do you recognize the value of play? And obviously when I knew they were getting games home, I know there was an element of bias there, but it was already there. They were getting the games home, so they were familiar with the approaches. But it was interesting to hear their feedback as to like how the blog had helped them or how they actually began to see the value of the play through the homework um, to recognize it. And when I did it, we had a September meeting with parents where we brought the infants' parents in and had a chat about the curriculum and the value or the use of play in the curriculum. And then at the end of the meeting, then I asked if anybody would be interested in participating in my research. And out of, I think it'd be 30 parents, I think about 10 said they would take part.
A
Oh,
good number.
yeah.
It was a good number, and a lot of them I would have been very familiar with. I suppose I taught their kids for a number of years, or so like everything had to be done. The principal had to lead the process of choosing them because I couldn't. Everything had to be done at
Yeah.
random because it was my research. But then the focus group was good because some parents weren't familiar at all, and they just wanted to take part to learn a little bit more. So they were like, "Oh, actually, that does work," and I hadn't seen that before, or getting their perspective on how they can find out more about things. So there was a good mixture in the focus group, but it was good to have them on board all the same. Like the research wouldn't be the same without them.
Yeah, and it's great that there were parents there who wanted to learn from your research and from other parents as well. So it's great that you had that, that variety of people who were there to say, I want to know a bit more about this. I don't know. the value of play, but I want to know. So that's really, really good and really
Oh,
reassuring.
I want every parent in Ireland to hear about your research, Michelle,
Yeah.
that like I didn't know about the value of play. And then by seeing it in action,
Yeah.
to realizing this is really important. I don't want my child doing workbooks in school,
Yeah.
especially in the younger classes. I want my child playing.
And we have to as well, appreciate that, as you say, when parents were in school, it was very different. And, their experience of learning is very different to what their children's experience is. And that it's okay not to know the value of play, but to be open to it and to be
Yeah.
open to saying, okay, you show me, you tell me how this is impacting our children and their learning. So for parents to be actually confident enough to be able to say, yeah, I don't know the value of play, but I want to learn more. It's really, really good. And it's really
Yeah.
reassuring because it's so different. We're in a different curriculum and, a different learning space now, aren't we?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. The parents in the focus group also pointed out that there was so much more to play than the academics. It was more about skills development and socially and personal development and problem solving. So they were beginning to recognize that in the Asher, when you had your team and you had your restaurant set up or whatever, they began to see the value of that because I would always do the optician in senior infants because they were going to the optician at that time because of the screening. And we used to do the optician, and then when they got there, they were like, "Oh yeah, we're just going to do this next, or we're going to do that." And the parents were like, "How do you know all this?" Or the same for the dentist; they'd have all the vocab, but the parents
That's
like, "How do you know all
amazing.
this?" And they got it from school because they were playing it in school, and they were enrolled in school doing all the different things. So they were like, I suppose between those kind of real life scenarios, making the connections, then the parents can say, okay, actually they are learning about this in school, and it's not on a workbook yet.
Yes, yeah.
It's so much more beneficial. So you did your focus group, you played for a year, and then how did you like engage parents, or did you do any practical element in your research? But I love the sound of your questions and everything
Yeah.
for the focus group. So you asked them loads of questions. Said, suppose our goal with this podcast is we want to get more play into schools and support teachers in whatever way we can. But just to give an idea of, look, here's something you could do. It might support,
Yeah.
might encourage
Uh,
teachers to do more.
So the questions for my focus group then were asked them about strategies they used at homework time for their children. Other than homework, are there other activities you do at home to support your child's learning? How do you receive feedback from the school on your child's progress and learning? Then are they directly involved in the school? And how and why. And then I went into the play based learning. How does the school support the use of play based approaches to learning at home? What's your opinion on play based learning? And how to improve parental involvement in school and how to make it effective. So it was a mixture of both. So you're building the parental involvement model first, and then bringing the play based learning and then trying to merge the two together because the research that was
Amazing.
done prior to my thesis didn't have the two together. So it was the first, well,
That's
I couldn't
amazing.
find anything with the two together. So that's where my research fit in and everything.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
And I love, creating that safe space as well for parents to answer honestly,
Yeah.
and that's so important too, to be able to say, no, I don't value play, or no, we don't do different strategies at home. And to be able to answer honestly, as you said, parents were there because they wanted to be for whatever reason. So giving them that safe space to voice their opinion is just, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And then to be able to kind of take that research and do something with it, it's really, yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Part of my research, it was in one school and they actually had an open Ashter session where the parents got to come in and actually view Ashter and see it in action, or the play based learning as it was at the time. So I so fortunate my principal, and I'm so grateful that she actually allowed me to do it. So when my research was done and submitted, she said you can do it now, and we planned it that we had open play sessions and that parents got to come in and observe. So they were coming in, I think our topic was the restaurant because it was a nice one for trying to join in the play. But before they came in, then I'd meet the parents and be like, okay, just you can come in and observe, you can come in and watch. But when you join the play, you join with them and they lead it. So please don't try and, that's the hardest part for parents is they want to jump in and control stuff. And as teachers, we do as well. But as years of playing, I realized if you actually just sit back and watch, I loved it because you'd see the language, you'd see the interactions.
Mm.
So the parents came in and they came in, some of them just sat and watched it all, and they had seen the setup, I suppose, from the blog images I'd put up or the photos on the blog. They had seen the different areas, and the kids would come home saying, I was in construction today, I was in small world, and they were like, what are all these things? So when they came in and they saw it, and I remember one child and the parent joined the play, and the child went straight up going, excuse me, do you have a reservation? And the parent was like, no.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And they were like, "Okay, let me just check." And they had a menu for
I
them
love
and they
that.
had everything for them. But, like, it was interesting, the parents that were willing to join and just sit are the ones that just wanted to watch, and they were like, "This is just fascinating." And we wouldn't see this unless we were invited in. And like that's, I suppose, us as a school relinquishing that and leaving that open to people coming in as well. So there's like our perspectives of the parents coming in, and then you have that we have to put the value on those parents coming in too. But I was so fortunate that we got to try it out because like I got moved out of infants afterwards, and I was like, I'm so fortunate that I actually got to put my research into action and see it in action and see the benefits of it as well.
So
Yeah.
tell me now, if I'm a teacher, because some teachers, like, the new curriculum is all about teacher agency. So some teachers will be like, no, that's not for me. It wouldn't work with this class. And like, that's fine because, we have our own agency is really important. But if I'm a teacher who's like, okay, I'd like to give that a go. Can you tell me how did you go about your open session? So you said you met parents beforehand.
Yeah, so we would have contacted them. Yeah, we would have contacted them first to explain that they'd be invited into an open Ashter session and that we reduced the number of parents, 2 to 3, 4 max, because of space and to not overload the children. And we just asked for people to express an interest of when they'd like to come and a day and a time that suits. Because obviously, for working parents, if they want to take time off or try and come in. And so then we arranged all that through paperwork. And then on the morning, we asked them to come in slightly earlier than the play session. And I met them and I explained it all to them before they came into the room. And then they came straight into the room then. And then afterwards, then I got to chat to him going, how did you feel about that? Like, what did you think of actually seeing
Yeah,
it in action and how do you feel? And they like the feedback was fabulous in that they were like, we never realized how much value or how much they could learn and how the language and the vocab that they were using. Like we were on week 2 of the team. So like we weren't, they still had learning to do and there was lots of vocab to do,
yeah,
but they still had the
yeah,
vocab that they were using. So it was planning it out, I suppose, and you have to be willing to allow the parents in. You have to
yeah,
know that there will be somebody who won't like it, and that's okay. And maybe
yeah,
they won't come in because they don't see the value in it themselves. I felt the parents who came in were the ones who wanted to know, who wanted to see it. They'd heard
yeah,
at home about being in the restaurant, being in the kitchen. They would be talking at home about it, and they'd be like, "What is she doing in there?" Do you know? But
yeah,
then they're the ones who want to know more, and they are the people who will come in. I don't think, well, hopefully, that the people who have no interest won't come in, or the people who
yeah,
don't see the value of it won't come in because they're not going to come in to criticize because they don't see the
yeah,
value of it
mhm,
then.
yeah,
Just have to be a change. It's the mindset we have to have that we're allowing these people into our space, into our classroom,
yeah,
into the mess
yeah,
and the chaos that we value.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
just really being proud of that, I suppose, and the valuing that ourselves when we're putting that to parents. That we have
yeah,
to really value it in the way we bring it and approach it to parents.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
you're
think for me, Michelle, listening to you talking, like obviously, there's so much learning to be done through play, but we always attribute that to the children's learning. But listening to you talking, the parents are learning through play too. The parents who came in and joined in the play or just observed, they learned so much from seeing that going on. And that's wonderful. And as you say, it's such an amazing thing to be able to do in your school, to
Yeah.
have that willingness. As you say, you have to be willing to do it. So to be willing to allow other people and to kind of relinquish a bit of that control. But I just see the learning for parents too. And I just
yeah,
think it's wonderful
some,
that, what you did is just wonderful. Well done.
yeah, that's amazing.
And I
I
bet there are so many parents who brought that home too and who brought a bit of,
yeah.
changed their strategy for homework or, a bit more play at the weekend, or I bet there's loads of parents who brought that home with them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like it was management. I wouldn't have been able to do it without the full support of my principal. She was fully behind my research from the start because she taught in infants with me. She was the opposite class to me. So without her, I wouldn't have been able to put any of this in action. So I wouldn't be able to talk about it on the podcast.
That's
So like
amazing.
you
So
have to
leadership
have the
matters.
management
So
behind you
brilliant.
as well,
Yeah. And how often did you bring parents in? Was it just half? Was it once a month? Was it like just accommodating your small groups or
Yeah, we did it for like over a week at that time after my research. And then I was moved to fifth and sixth after that. I think they tried to schedule it the following year. Like they didn't just not try it once. I do think they tried it again second year, with the teachers that were in infants then. Uh,
sometimes, you really are afraid of like what will the parents
Mhm.
think? And you're saying, well, I was curious about it. I brought them in and they were blown away.
yeah,
That's
and they
amazing.
have to see it. I don't think they value it until they see it. And
Yeah.
once it's the involvement, I suppose, and informing them all the way, and like the importance of communication with them, and communication that works as well, whether it's visual or like emails or Aladdin. There was always communication back and forth. So I don't think you could jump into it just straight off until you build all
Yeah.
the foundations of parental involvement first,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
can build it through play with the value of play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So I have a question for you, Michelle. You said after infants you moved to the senior end.
Mm.
Do you do similar with the senior end? Would you bring playful learning into your classroom, or would you bring the parents?
Would I bring the parents in? Possibly not because I'm not as hands on play, I suppose. I don't know, would they see the value of it coming into my Irish lesson when they're playing a game? I don't know what I do at this time. That's a very interesting question now. Would I love to see, I'd love to bring them in for like a science investigation where it's all hands on and they're leading it and say, this is how, there's different ways to child led learning and child led play. But I think all the research that I did on play, I brought with me to the senior end. Like it does not stop at
Yeah.
senior end. Like,
No. No,
doesn't.
I agree.
Like, learning your tables is boring, but if you put a game in front of them, they're matching cards, they're flying through their tables. And that was one of the recommendations that came out of my thesis was that we should look at this beyond infants. We should look at the value of play-based learning beyond infants and getting parents on board with that. Now I've changed schools and relocated in the meantime since my thesis. So I have to, like I was even like, okay, maybe I need to start looking back at this and what can I revisit and bring to my fifth and sixth class now? What do I value? But yeah, no, play doesn't stop at infants. Play should just go all the way up. And I'd love to do like
Absolutely.
thematic play with fifth and sixth, but you can't fit it in.
Yeah. I just, from my days teaching sixth class, it is just the most amazing thing, isn't it? And the connections and the relationships it builds. I just love it. I just love play based learning in a middle to senior class as well.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to see the parents' views on that. I did a little bit of very, very small research as well with a focus group of children in my class. And, just chatting to parents, they were very supportive of, there was kind of, and I'm sure there were many more, you're playing with sixth class,
Mm.
is the real work being done? But parents were very supportive. And I think they were seeing the children and hearing the children going home and talking with things. And they go, hang on, there's something going on here. So I
Mhm.
think it'd be really interesting to bring parents into a senior class.
I'd love
That's your next.
like Yeah, my next research. I'd love to send home games for homework, like not do master your maths one of the nights and send home the dots game that they love at the minute and be like, go into your tables
Yeah.
on that now tonight. I'd love to. I might actually try it.
Yeah,
They'd be
I've
like,
done
what's
that
coming at
too.
me? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like when children see games, they think of devices and consoles. They don't
Yeah.
necessarily think of dice games or card games or everything is device and consoles and everything is coming at them, not necessarily them playing as such.
That's what
It's really
we are.
interesting. Yeah.
We are working so hard to turn the tide on that because it's so sad that when children, even in third class, are
Hmm.
like, play.
Yeah.
What? Oh, like we're too old for that. It's like, we need to change that.
Yeah.
In sixth class, they need to realize, of course, we play. We love playing. And I know my eyes up when I was up in fifth and sixth, the child led play, I introduced that. We'd free play on Friday afternoons. And it was amazing to see initially they
Yes.
were like, what? Or like, do you think we're in infants? Because I was their teacher in infants as well. And it
Yeah.
was like, no, I'm just learning. This
Yeah.
is really, really important. So we need to get back to playing. And at the
Yeah.
start, I actually had to have a rota because they were so removed from it. They'd forgotten how to play. And within a few weeks, sure, they were back to it. They knew just what they wanted and they absolutely loved it. It
Yeah.
was just,
Yeah.
But it just goes
yeah,
to show that if you don't provide that, they get out of it and they
yeah,
may not get back to it. So we need to be providing that as long as we can. As
yeah,
you say, in a few weeks they were back into it. But
yeah,
if nobody's doing that, then they won't get back into it.
No.
I hope that, with this new curriculum framework, that it doesn't stop after senior infants, that it just goes all the way up and it just becomes the norm
yeah.
To not to just play.
to
It was
get a
one
real
of
push.
Yeah, one of the teachers in my research, she was actually an Ashter facilitator. And she was like, I'm coming to like 30 years teaching, and I've enjoyed teaching so much in the last third of my career than I have since I started. And that's because of play based learning. I was looking at that today and I was like, wow. And then I was looking at myself going, actually, yeah, that's when like you found your niche is when I started to play. And then I like everything has come from that. Like my research, my teaching approaches in school, everything has come from that. So I'm like, okay, I'm following in this lady's footsteps. But I was like, how could you go through that many years of teaching, 20 years of teaching, and then play based learning brings it all to life for you? Brings your like so that you enjoy your career the most.
So many things that you've
Yeah.
said there, Michelle, that are so important and so meaningful, and everyone needs to hear.
Yeah. So Michelle, what was the most interesting thing that came out of your research, or the thing that you didn't expect? Did anything you didn't expect to come out of your research?
But I think like it was just a variety of approaches. And what struck me is that I was so used to two-way communication with parents about everything. And a lot of people were just send it out in Aladdin or send it out in Class Dojo, but there was no interaction. Whereas I would have like, and I still work to that way that you send out stuff to parents and you can allow questions back and it's okay to ask a question to clarify things. I think that struck me that most of the teachers were like, "Oh yeah, no, I send it all out. I send it out in Aladdin. I send it out in Dojo." But I was like, "But can the parents come back to you about things? Can they come and like what I used to do is if I was doing a theme, I'd say, "Oh, we're doing this theme. If you've anything like if we're doing space, if you've any space toys or books or whatever, please send them in and I'll return them." And the parents were involved that way. They could send stuff in. One parent used to go and buy stuff on a Saturday when she was shopping. She'd throw something extra in the trolley and send it into school. And I was like, and then I'd send everything home again because the kids would be like, oh, we use this for playtime today. And we'd send it home. And then one of the teachers in the research then suggested a newsletter that she did where she puts vocab, songs, rhymes, and something as all based on the topic. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try that. So I tried that then as well. But I just thought maybe my views on parental involvement and the importance of it and the two-way communication aspect was a big thing. In all the research, it had to be two-way, but it probably wasn't like it wasn't from all the teachers I interviewed either, though. But not necessarily that it has to be two-way, and to encourage two-way communication as well.
And
Title just
Are you ready for your rapid fire questions?
just about.
Question number one. What was your favorite thing to play with as a child?
I was a baby doll all the way. I was never without a baby doll, and it could have been a boy, a girl, different race. Didn't matter. I had to have a baby doll all the way.
Yeah,
love that.
hear that. If you had a stick to play with, what would it become?
Question. Probably a magic wand at the minute because I'm renovating. I just want it finished, please. No, but I'd say like it probably would be a magic wand or something for cooking. Like the mud kitchens outside cooking with the mud
Yeah.
kitchen.
I like that. I like that. And tell us, what is a playful habit that you've never grown out of?
I do love colouring still. Like I'd have the mindful colouring books. And I love board games. Like every year for Christmas, my nieces and nephews, I get them board games. It's just a family thing. I buy a new board game. We're all around the table after Christmas dinner and we pull it out. So love a good board game. And that's from childhood. Like we always had a board game. So yeah, definitely board games.
That's so lovely. I love that.
Yeah.
Love it. And who nurtures or nurtured your playfulness?
Definitely my mom, I'd say, because like we always had cabbie houses and whatever was in the house was well, within reason, was allowed out in the cabbie house. Like, no matter what was been used or reused, there was always a cabbie house to be made.
What's a caveat?
A cabbie house, just a house outside that you just make in the tree, or we just had a hole in the ditch. That was our cabbie house. And it's just growing up in the country, like, you spent your day outside, but you weren't up and down the street. You were
Yeah,
just in the garden, like, so that's where your play was.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's so good.
yeah.
And the
Okay,
last one, Helena?
what is a small joy that you look forward to each day?
Can't say home time.
Yeah, you can. You can.
Small joy that I look forward to every day. Do you know what I love? My chats in the morning. I go into school early, and like, normally I have great plans that I'm going in to photocopy or have everything ready, and it's just the chat in the morning. It's just, there's about 3 or 4 of us that are in early. We have the chats, and then we get on with our day, and we may not see each other again till tomorrow morning. But it is my early morning chats and coffees, and our Friday coffees.
Oh,
On a Friday, I bring coffees for the girls that are in early. So that's our morning Friday treat.
Can I come to your school? That was so fabulous. Thank you. It was a great chat. Really interesting. And I'm sure that our listeners will find that really interesting as well, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Michelle for joining us for this episode of The Playful Lens and for sharing her inspiring journey from her thesis and research to inviting parents into her classroom to see the power of play in action. This is an incredible reminder of how meaningful learning can become when we open our doors and share the joy. If you enjoyed this episode with Michelle and our other episodes, don't forget to follow, rate and subscribe to The Playful Lens. It helps other people to find our podcast. You can find us on Instagram at The Playful Lens. Michelle is at Ashter Moon Tour, and you can find me, Gillian, at The Glitter and Coffee Teacher, and Helena at Experiential Wellbeing, and all of those pages are linked in the show notes. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the episodes, stories of play in your own classrooms, or any questions you have on how we can support you in your play journey. So until next time, keep playing, keep learning, and keep looking at the world through a playful lens.